for Bloomington Township to order, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Matthey?
Here.
Trustee Boland?
Here.
Trustee Milwamboy?
Here, doubly here.
Trustee Emig?
Present.
Trustee Painter?
Here.
Trustee Carrillo? Trustee Ward?
Here.
Trustee Craybill?
Here.
Trustee Bray?
Okay, awesome. I do believe we have a quorum. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that anybody would like to remove? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to
I'll make that
approve?
motion. I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Trustee
Second.
Boland, seconded by Trustee Matthey. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Matthey?
Yes.
Trustee Boland?
Yes.
Trustee Milwamboy?
Yes.
Trustee Emig?
Yes.
Trustee Painter?
Yes.
Trustee Ward?
Aye.
Trustee Craybill?
Yes.
That's everybody.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item of the agenda, which is item number 5, courtesy copy of annual statement of receipts and expenditures unaudited for fiscal year 2021, which was presented at the annual town meeting on April 13, 2021. So I believe this is just for record keeping only, right? No motion required?
Correct.
Yes.
This is Deb. Correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other comments, Deb?
I don't have any other comments. They were presented in your board packets. If anyone has any questions, to contact me.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 6, request for proposal for milling and paving of roads at Evergreen Memorial Cemetery. And the motion is to authorize, or actually the motion is that the RFP be awarded to HD Apple and Co. and contractors in the amount of $33,961.9, and the cemetery board president and township supervisor be authorized to execute the necessary documents. So is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Trustee Boland, second by Trustee Painter. What I can see. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Is there a discussion, first of all? Okay, doesn't look like it from my screen. So Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Matthey?
Yes.
Trustee Boland?
Yes.
Trustee Milwamboy?
Yes.
Trustee Emig?
Yes.
Trustee Painter?
Yes.
Trustee Ward?
Aye.
And Trustee Craybill?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a report by our elected officials, starting with Township Supervisor Pscrb. Deb, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for not being visual today, but I'm having trouble with connecting. So I figured phone would be the best way. So
Deb, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Just first off, thank trustees Bray, Renner, and Painter for their service in the number of years that they've served. Am I cutting out?
Yes,
Yes.
Can you hear me?
we can now.
Now it's better.
Hello?
Yes, much
Can you
better.
hear me now? Oh my.
Yes,
So I want
we
to thank
can.
Trustee Brave Runner and Painter. Okay, you can. Okay, that's great. I want to thank the trustees that will be leaving us as this is their last meeting today. Trustee Bray, Trustee Renner, and Trustee Painter, thank you for your service to our community. We wish you, the township wishes you the best in your future endeavors. Are you still able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I want to continue then with going to the system activity report. I just wanted to point out a couple of things from last year to this year. You'll notice there's a big change in the amount of general assistance that we provided. And I believe COVID has really made that change evident in our workfare program. We've not presented any workfare expenses because workfare didn't exist. And then number of calls versus face-to-face, definitely the calls have been, it's basically the numbers have swapped around. There's not very much face-to-face interaction right now. We're hoping to get that back as things open up. Additionally, I wanted to say that the TORMA dividend check is for the amount of $4,748. So in the past 5 years, we've received $23,139 from TORMA for dividends one time each year. Let's see what else.
Deb,
Yes.
am I correct in remembering that that is a fund that a lot of townships all have invested in for risk management? And then if there's no claims against it, that money is invested and that's where the dividends are coming from. Is that correct?
Yes, that is exactly correct. And, you know, I might add too, that in terms of the rural townships, taking the rural townships on, and this is just a change, but it reflects with what TORMA does. All of the townships that we're currently in intergovernmental agreement to provide assistance in assessing the general assistance, emergency assistance, they all are also paying into TORMA and use TORMA as their risk management pool.
Thank you.
All right.
I wanted to add
Thank you.
one more.
Look, Jeff, can you, sorry, Deb, it looks like
That's okay.
Alderman Trustee Craybill has a question. So I don't know if you are done with your comments or we can wait, or would you like to proceed further?
I have one more comment and then I would be happy to address Trustee Craybill. Okay. I wanted to make note, and I'm not sure if everyone understands the significance of Deb White's passing at Mid-Central Community Action. We're very, disheartened by that, and we wish her family well. I do want to say that Township has in the past been very open in our communications with Mid-Central Community Action to help with assessments of any of the CDBG monies that maybe, or the CSBG, whatever we can do to streamline efforts in our community with the COVID response. And so with this, with her passing and with probably the turmoil that's happening in terms of just regrouping with Mid-Central Community Action, or even with the city, if there's any struggles, we are here. And if there's anything that we can do at Township to do the assessment, we do have a qualified staff to do that. Our number is a little lower because I believe that the federal funding and the state funding that exists hasn't been exhausted. So Township's at a lull at this point and ready to respond in any way that we need to.
Thank you, Deb. Any
And then,
other? Okay,
well,
go ahead.
Trustee Craybill, I'm ready for you as well.
Thanks, Deb. And you may have just answered this question, but going back to the system activity report, I did notice there was a decrease between fiscal year, 2020, which was basically before COVID started, to fiscal year 2021, that was right in COVID, that the amount of general assistance provided was less. And then same with emergency assistance. Is it just because there's other aid available, or because of the moratoriums? What would you say?
I would say it's both, Trustee Crable. The moratoriums, once they're lifted, that we'll be seeing a lot more happening. And with the water bills, we're prepared to help in any way we can with the water bills as well. But at this point, federal funds and the moratoriums are at federal and state, and then moratoriums equally are taking care of what the needs are. And that's why we're ready to assist if we have to or need to. And because we know that these CDBG funds are being hit hard in terms of this. So we do have restrictions, obviously. The CERP program is not being utilized yet because we're waiting for funds to be exhausted in other agencies, but we are aware of that. Township is a major, not a major, one of the Housing Coalition members, and we are working together to try to solve those problems.
Thank you, Deb.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, doesn't look like it. Thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much,
you.
Deb.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and move on to Township Assessor Steve Scudder for his comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My presentation was from the annual meeting. Some things, instead of going through each slide individually, some things to keep in mind are the amount of people that are working in this office, and the number of parcels in the city of Bloomington Township are, the staff works very, very hard to come up with the metrics that they have came up, or to accomplish the metrics they have came up, the state has given us, and the county, by not giving a multiplier to the city of Bloomington in the amount of years. But at 33 1/3, 33.33 is the Department of Revenue's measurement for metric for measuring equity between property assessments and sale prices. And they're using the sales prices of the year after the assessments are published. So we're predicting a sale price in the future, and to maintain a level of uniformity, keeping up with sales prices with this many people in the office is a job well done to my staff. They continue to monitor the sales and continue to do things at a high rate of efficiency. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If you have any questions on the full report, I'm happy to answer any of them.
Any questions from our distinguished trustees? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, I guess we're gonna move on to the last step of our meeting, which is adjournment. But I see Trustee Renner made a grand entrance, so I'm gonna give him the honor of adjourning us. Maybe?
He doesn't have his earbuds in, so he has.
Oh, he doesn't? Okay. Well, oh, he's talking. You're muted, Terry. He's still muted.
He's working on it.
Okay.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We just need a motion to adjourn, is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
It's the
thank you,
most exciting
Maboka.
part for you.
One last time. Moved by Trustee Boland, second by Trustee Matthey. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We're adjourned, and see you in 15 minutes.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. Unmute.
that for you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and, can everybody hear me? We good? I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain, in observance for a moment of silence. Start with pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a moment of silence. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Metheny,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Millawamboy,
Here.
Councilmember Emig,
Present.
Councilmember Painter,
Here.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Craybill,
Here.
Councilmember Bray,
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. Thank you very much. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to our city manager for a COVID-19 update. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Quick update that the vaccination, the Janssen or the Johnson & Johnson is being administered at the McLean County vaccination site, which is our arena. And then also just a reminder to the community. Please adhere to the safety precautions that the CDC and the McLean County Health Department ask for regarding wearing a mask, washing hands, that kind of stuff. We have had 162 new cases since Friday. So the virus is still very much present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And just if I could underscore that, we're not out of the woods yet. So please, everybody, don't take unnecessary risks. I think that's something that we could all agree on. At this point, we're going to move to recognitions and appointments. And they have the service of myself that I believe Mayor Pro Tem Millawamboy is going to deal with, and then Council Members Johnny Painter and Kim Bray. And we have Council Member Bray in the council chambers here. And so she's going to directly receive her plaque, and we'll make sure that Johnny gets hers. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mboka.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Renner. I thought it would be a little bit awkward for you to present a plaque to yourself. So
I've done more awkward things.
No comment.
Hey, with the silence, it's deafening.
Yes. So I wanted to take a moment to recognize you for your 8 years of service to the city of Bloomington as mayor. I know that the task of mayor is one that can be thankless, as I've been told, and as I'm sure I will find out. Over the years, you've had your share of successes, challenges, but one thing is for sure is that as we look at where Bloomington is 8 years later, particularly in the midst of a pandemic, I think we can safely say that you are leaving the city in an enviable position compared to other municipalities, and that is something that we should definitely celebrate. As a political scientist, public service, I know, is in your blood, and I'm sure you will continue to serve the community in many other ways. And we certainly look forward to interacting with you in whatever new role you choose for yourself. So on behalf of all of the council, but also the community, I'd like to say thank you very much for your 8 years of service.
Thank you, Mboka. Appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, Tim is coming over with the plaque.
Yes. And there was, just for the record, there was thunderous applause, but everybody was muted.
I know better. Oh, thank you. Oh, man, it's actually heavy. I can do curls with this. Cool. Thank you. This is really wonderful. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. And I have the distinct honor of presenting two plaques. And in the order of awards, we'll start with Johnny Painter, who actually I had appointed back in the winter of 2014 when Councilmember Jennifer McDade resigned. And then Johnny won 2 terms in her own right, 2 years and then 4 years later. And so this is presented to Johnny Painter in grateful appreciation for your outstanding service and leadership as council member for the city of Bloomington. And certainly we very much appreciate your clear, direct, honest approach and dedication to a broad range of issues in the entire time you've been here. So on behalf also of not only the city council, the city staff, the city of Bloomington, but all of our residents, thank you so much for your many years of service. And we certainly wish you the best moving forward. Apologize for that, Johnny. And this is a really cool plaque. I'm going to kind of hold it up here, and we will make sure that you get it as soon as possible. Thank you. Whoops. I've got another one here, and this is for Councilmember Kim Bray. Also in grateful appreciation for your outstanding service and leadership as council member for the city of Bloomington, 2017 to 2021. And the beauty of this is Kim is right here. She's here to accept this. And I'm going to, if you want to come over and get it. Okay, so it's a kind of a tight screen, but everybody, see, she's wearing red. Come on over here. I got to put my mask on. Oh boy, I'm going to get into trouble if I don't. Okay. Okay. Again, to Councilmember Bray, who was elected in 2017, she served Ward 9 for 4 years. And it's really been great to have your legal perspective and the legal profession and analytical thoughts and perspectives on everything from the Downtown Task Force and Commission to all of the things that you have contributed to in service of your ward. And particularly one of the things that's obviously been really critical to your ward has been the reducing 911 service calls, because that's literally a life and death issue. And we so much appreciate that. I'm so glad that you're in red. Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to shake her hand. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. She can pose in there. Thanks.
It's been an honor and a privilege.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. At this point, I'm going to take my mask off, excuse me, and move back around. We have a proclamation recognizing April as National Fair Housing Month as recognized by the administration. And here, this is, let me, in order here. Do we have Brandon Schaefer online accepting this award? Yes. Brandon?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. We appreciate your willingness to come and accept this. It's really critical, and especially in light of the fact that even though our housing prices in Bloomington, generally speaking, are affordable, we're not alone. Many places much more expensive, much more difficult, but even in Bloomington with a high cost, a high average income, median income, and comparatively modest housing prices, we still have a serious affordable housing crisis and other kinds of issues related to that. So this is obviously not just affordable, but fair housing. And the Fair Housing Act of 1968 was really a critical piece of second Reconstruction legislation. But I'm going to move from my editorial comments to the proclamation. It says, whereas the city of Bloomington, Illinois finds that safe and affordable housing is part of the American dream and a goal of Illinois residents. Whereas individuals in the state of Illinois have the right to choose where to live, purchase, or rent property without discrimination based on race, color, religion, age, sex, familial status, marital status, national origin, ancestry, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, military status, unfavorable military discharge and protection, and order of protection status. And whereas federal and state of laws affirm the right of every person to equal housing opportunity, and whereas fair housing is a positive community good, and whereas economic stability, community health, and human relations in all communities in the state of Illinois are improved by diversity and integration, and whereas the talents of nonprofit organizations, housing service providers, financial institutions, elected officials, state agencies, and others must be combined to promote and preserve integration, fair housing, and equal opportunity. Whereas Realtors locally and nationally pledge to provide equal professional service without regard to the race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin of any prospective client, customer, or resident of any community. Whereas Realtors locally and nationally pledge to affirmatively pursue business practices that will ensure that everyone in it is welcome and no one is excluded. Whereas Realtors locally and nationally have incorporated affirmative fair housing practices into the Realtors Code of Ethics, by which all Realtors must abide. Now, therefore, I, Terry Renner, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, Illinois, do proclaim April 2021 as National Fair Housing Month in Bloomington and establish our community as an open and inclusive community committed to fair housing and to promote appropriate activities by private and public entities intended to provide or advocate for integration and equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of our county. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I would like to thank you, Mayor, as well as the City Council and the city staff that assist us all the time with all of our real estate needs when it comes to the community. I'm Brandon Schaefer. I'm the president of the Mid-Illinois Realtors Association, and I'd like to congratulate and thank you for recognizing April as Fair Housing Month with your proclamation, and to just share a sliver's worth of information about Realtor efforts to affirmatively further fair housing. As real estate professionals, Realtors take the promotion of fair housing very seriously throughout the year. To us, every month is Fair Housing Month, not just the month of April. Many of the ordinances, zoning, and legislative issues that we advocate for are rooted in the promotion of equal housing opportunities for all. To practice as a Realtor, an individual must provide equal professional service without regard to the race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, or sexual orientation of any prospective client, customer, or the residents of any community. Realtors must keep up to date on local, state, and fair federal housing laws and practices, improving clients' and customers' opportunities and the Realtor's business. We must develop advertising that indicates that everyone is welcome and no one is excluded, expanding customers' opportunities to see, buy, or lease any property. We must inform clients and customers about their rights and responsibilities under the fair housing laws provided by brochures and other information that we've got for them. And we refuse to tolerate any non-compliance. Those are just a few of the principles Realtors abide by to promote fair housing. And in fact, Article 10 of the Realtor Code of Ethics compels all Realtors to conduct business in keeping with the spirit and letter of the law. Thank you again for recognizing Fair Housing Month and for the work that you do representing the people of Bloomington.
Thank you so much. Again, we appreciate all that you do. And at this point, we're going to move to our next proclamation, which is declaring May 2021 National Historic Preservation Month. And I understand, and this is going to be a shock to everyone, that Greg Coos is online to accept this. My gosh. Greg, can you hear me?
I sure can, Terry.
Thanks. This is declaring May 2021 National Historic Preservation Month. Whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life and ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it's important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people, whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth, revitalizing neighborhoods and downtowns, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation in Bloomington is made possible through the efforts and actions of the National Park Service, State of Illinois Historic Preservation Office, City of Bloomington Economic and Community Development Department, City of Bloomington's appointed Historic Preservation Commission, the Bloomington City Council, and the many dedicated residents of McLean County. And whereas the month of May is recognized as National Historic Preservation Month, a time to provide an even greater opportunity to celebrate the diverse and unique heritage of the nation's cities and states and the commitment of local preservationists. Now, therefore, I, Terry Renner, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, Illinois, do proclaim May 2021 to be National Historic Preservation Month in the city of Bloomington, and I call upon the people of Bloomington, Illinois to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and sharing this special observance. Thank you very much, and we appreciate this and all the work that you do. Some comments that you might have, Greg.
Thank you, Terry. I'm accepting this on behalf of your Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission. I'm vice chair of that. The city of Bloomington has a healthy and well-managed historic preservation program. The staff support to the commission is superb, first rate. We've really developed a very fine set of people to work with us on these issues. Historic preservation is a critical aspect of the economic health of the city of Bloomington. That is the corporate city of Bloomington. And also to District 87. Recently in some research I was doing, I was able to count 450 square blocks of pre-1900 housing. So that's housing that's over 120 years old. And that housing is sturdy. It is home to thousands of your residents, and it will be home to thousands of your residents 100 years from now. It's a vital resource for the community. And historic preservation means that what we do is we preserve this resource, this human resource of the built environment for the use not only of our current generation, but for the use of our future generation. And the preservation and continued use of that is a very healthy part of the tax base for not only the city of Bloomington, but more importantly, for District 87, for our Bloomington school system. If you add the housing from before 1950, you pick up another 300 square blocks or so. So it is a big chunk of your city is historic. The commission is pleased that the city has funded the grant programs which allow individual homeowners to show leadership in the techniques and the effects of historic preservation properly conducted. So we end up creating model examples. We end up creating and working in neighborhoods where people can see the overall impact of well-managed and well-preserved homes. And so the investment that the city makes in individual properties, whether they're downtown or whether they're in your historic districts, have a much broader impact. They show confidence, they show appreciation, and they show the seriousness of the city's efforts to preserve its historic environment. So again, I would like to thank you all for engaging and for supporting these activities.
Thank you again, Greg. We appreciate it very much. And we'll make sure that you get a copy of this, or not the copy, you copy this, I'm sorry, that you get the presentation here. Excuse me, I got to grab my glasses. Okay, next we are celebrating Arbor Day, and we do have Carol Gunning. Carol, are you there?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Okay, so we're starting out with whereas in 1872, even I wasn't around then, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Terry Renner, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, Illinois, do proclaim April 30th, that's this Friday, 2021, as Arbor Day. In the City of Bloomington, I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. Thank you. And I also, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Thank you very much. Do you have any comments?
Yes, I just wanted to say we're very excited to celebrate Arbor Day with our DAR chapter by planting a tree in honor of Helen Killian, who some of you may know, at the David Davis Mansion this Friday. I also want to thank Mayor Renner and the whole City Council for issuing this proclamation for us.
Thank you again. And thank you for your dedication and service. We very much appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, at this point, excuse me, we move on to recognitions of appointments to various boards and commissions. Are there names to announce, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have the appointment of Ina Perkins to the Bloomington Housing Authority, Benjamin Munch to the Planning Commission. Then we have reappointments of Sarah Kemp to the Citizens Beautification Committee, Julia. Mayor, I'm gonna need your help with this one.
Oh, I don't have the list in front of me. What's her last name? How's it spelled?
Colligan to the Cultural Commission.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Melissa Libers to the Cultural Commission, Ryan McCracken to the Cultural Commission, Dawn Peters to the Historic Preservation Commission, Diane Hollister to the Library Board of Trustees, Susan Moore to the Library Board of Trustees, Matthew Wachinski to the Library Board of Trustees, Tyson Moore to the Planning Commission, William Bennett to the Public Safety and Community Relations Board, and Serena Fish to the Public Safety and Community Relations Board.
Okay, and then that letter group, other than the first two, are all reappointments.
Correct.
Just to clarify. Okay, thank you very much. Now we move to public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone present who has registered for public comment to speak directly to us?
We do. We have two individuals who registered for public comment and are in person, and we have two who registered for public comment and are on the line. If you wouldn't mind, we can start with those who are in person.
Please, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
We have Mr. Scott Steinmeier.
Mr. Steinley, you have 3 minutes. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Terry, do you recall the wasteful spending that you're so well known for? How about the generations to come that will never be able to pay down this debt? Do you recall that you referred to a Bloomington resident as a worthless piece of garbage? Do you recall the fact that you used a city credit card to entertain your girlfriend, and the only reason you got paid it back was you got caught? I would have thought that when you called Diane Benjamin a worthless piece of garbage, that would have been grounds for removal from office right then. Just because the city did not have an ordinance addressing that, then you got a hold of throwing a fit, letting Alderman Carrillo throw a fit because some of the people she wanted elected didn't get it elected. And that's like acting well beneath an alderman. If you notice the condition of the streets in this town, I've been after this and after it and after it and after it, and you keep spending. And the streets are in certain places, they're down to the curb line. But I guess you really don't care, do you? And, I guess the thing is the city basically has no competition on garbage, water. I brought this up before, and they keep raising rates. And it used to be that a water bill would be around $10, and now it's over 70. But you keep adding all these lousy things in there that we were getting included in our taxes, such as garbage, such as stormwater. It's criminal that the fact that you can sit there and laugh about all this. And Terry, I don't think it's funny. I really don't. Thankfully, this is your last hurrah tonight. And so you will be looking at it through the taxpayer's eyes now, not as mayor. And I hate to burst your bubble, but I know that you really eat all this up. And Terry, I'm embarrassed to admit that I reside in the city of Bloomington. Thank you.
Next, Madam Clerk.
Next, we have Alan Axelrod, who is also in person.
Hi, my name is Alan Max Axelrod. I'm the campaign lead of a group called No Ameren Shutoffs. We're a $0 all-volunteer grassroots coalition of 53 organizations and counting, spanning the state of Illinois, north and south, east and west. We have won 4 utility shutoff moratoria. In lieu of rehashing all of the pandemic data, I'm going to provide context for the resolution vote before you tonight by reminding you what happened not only last week, but the time last year when you had considered such an initiative before. On November 16th of 2020, you all unanimously passed an initiative saying that utility shutoffs was a pandemic safety risk and that we needed action on this matter. 2 days later, Ameren, Illinois lied about the weather and stopped utility shutoffs, or announced that they would stop utility shutoffs on November 18th. The 24-hour forecast is the only thing that governs whether or not a corporation can actually engage in utility shutoffs, and they misrepresented those facts. April 19th, last week, 2021, you all unanimously passed an initiative on utility shutoffs because they have resumed as of April 14th of this year. April 22nd, 2021, last week, Governor J.B. Pritzker responded by having an executive order number 7 issued this year that recognized the pandemic safety risk of utility shutoffs. But instead of enacting a complete moratorium or any moratorium, he provided funding for $1,000 for 80,000 households that are behind on utilities. The Attorney General last month said that there are over 800,000 households at risk of utility shutoffs. So that does some good, but nowhere near enough. The Illinois Commerce Commission is the body that ultimately regulates utilities, but doesn't have the power to enact a moratorium. It's the governor. That is why the utility shutoffs resolution before you tonight specifically calls on the governor to issue that moratorium. And that bill that we talked about last week, HB 2877, which pays rent and utility debt down directly to the utility providers, including municipal utilities, as well as housing providers, property managers, and homeowners, landlords. It had 11 sponsors last week and now has 23. Please act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, next.
Next, we have Joseph Taylor.
Mr. Taylor, are you there? Mr. Taylor, can you hear us? You have 3 minutes.
Yes, I can. I'm here. I appreciate the time this evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My comments tonight are in regards to items O and P on the agenda, rezoning and PUD approval request for the land just north of Fuller Court along Bike Road. I'm an adjacent property owner. I'm also work professionally with property valuation and finance, and have a history of actually owning a similar type of property that is being proposed to be put in there. And basically, I just kind of I know I emailed everyone some concerns and a kind of a lengthy letter attached there, but I just wanted to vocalize my opposition to those proposed changings and just kind of reiterate the poor financial investment that type of home can be. And the biggest problem is most people don't even realize how bad of an investment it is until they actually go to sell it. Just kind of other items of concern. Obviously, the whole purpose of the zoning regulations is for some sort of orderly development within the city, not necessarily just a checkerboard zoning if somebody was willing to build it, then let them do it, but to do it in an orderly fashion. And I didn't find anywhere else where you have an R4 zoning sandwich between two residentially zoned areas, such as being proposed here. I did go and I spoke to a number of my neighbors, and they were overwhelmingly opposed to the proposed change. A number of my neighbors and people who bought along Fuller Court back when that was originally built, when those were new construction, I talked to a couple of people who bought those homes new, who said that their builder told them that when they bought it originally, that those homes would be, there would be a park that would be built either along Fuller Court or in the area or in this vacant lot, which is adjacent to it, which is actually the subject of the thing. And just kind of wanted to point out that there is very limited recreation in the area as well. Obviously, there's the bike trail, which runs adjacent to Bike Road, which is a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is, almost unwalkable because you walk the whole time with your head turned over your shoulder, waiting for a car to come off the road to hit you. So, adding this number of homes with bringing in families and the poor financial investment, it all adds up to something that I don't think is in the best interest of the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else?
Yes, we have Leon Cabe.
Hello, can you hear us? Hello? You have 3 minutes. Hello?
Hello. Yeah,
Yes.
Leon here.
Thank you. Leon, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. I live in Ward 5, and I'm happy that candidate Nick Becker was elected to the position of the city council, and I intend to call in next week also. But I'm also saddened that we again have too much drama in Bloomington, Bloomington, centered around candidates and politicians and stuff. And my opinion then today is that I appreciate the city council taking some action against one of the members there. But also want to give my public opinion that, maybe really need to dig deeper and see what's going on. I actually think the media has a part to blame in this. I think the media has been biased. And unfortunately, when bias in the media happens, you don't get advocacy of truth. So I speak my opinion both to the city council and to the media that the conduct of one of the members there, Alderman Frio, that it is, it goes far and wide, and it's just sad that, again, Bloomington is caught up in some drama, and I don't know when this is all going to come down, but I just encourage the city council to be ever vigilant on this, and plus any media, that they give true media coverage and not just their biases. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else?
That's everybody, and we didn't have any emailed public comment.
Okay, no email public comment. Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we're going to go ahead and move to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any member of the city council would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Councilmember Ward, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to ask that item number or letter N be removed.
N, okay. Anyone else? Councilmember Bolin?
Yes, P and O.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Madam Clerk, I'm trying to see if I don't see anybody else. Okay.
That's it.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of items N, O, and P?
So moved. So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Brace, second by Councilmember Crayville. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Sorry about that. Councilmember Mathey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Milawambwe,
Yes.
Councilmember Ime,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Craybill,
Yes.
and Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Ward. She's the first one, and you had pulled item N. Molly, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to, I asked for this to be removed because I'd like it to be amended. I would like to move that the amount of $82,784 be reduced to $15,653, and that the remaining $67,131 be returned to the general fund for use during fiscal year 22 on improvements at street crossing areas to make them ADA compliant. I plan to introduce the council member initiative at the next committee of the whole meeting, directing city staff to prioritize which street crossings are most in need of attention and to move forward with drafting an ADA accessibility transition plan by the end of this calendar year. Yeah.
At this point, I'll see, is there a second to this motion before we begin a discussion? Second by Councilmember Bray. At this point, I'm going to return to the maker of the motion. Anything else you would like to add, Molly?
Yeah, I am not against brick street improvements. I have brick streets in my own neighborhood. One of the very first things I ever spoke to the council about had to do with brick streets years and years ago. I have nothing against brick streets. At the same time, I can't in good conscience vote to spend this amount of money on brick streets when we have so many street crossings and other issues regarding ADA compliance. I have neighbors who cannot safely get to the grocery store, who cannot safely get out to vote, who can't safely do a lot of things that others of us take for granted because they can't get down the sidewalk and across the street. It's a safety issue and it's an accessibility issue. And I think that by this kind of a compromise, we are allowing for us to send a signal that ADA accessibility is important to us. We have not updated the plan, which is still in draft status, the accessibility transition plan, since 2015. So 6 years now that hasn't been updated. For the last 3 years, we have shifted, we've reallocated money that's been left over from the RUST grant programs to brick streets. We've spent $89,000 since fiscal year 18 on this. And we can cover some sidewalk curb cuts, for example. The average sidewalk curb cut runs about $2,500 a piece, and we can cover quite a few of those with some of the money that we're talking about. And I'd like to see us be intentional about that. So that's my thinking.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilmember Emig.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the very thoughtful rationale. I just want to register that it's too bad that we have to think about funding for ADA compliance versus funding for brick streets. I wish there were a way that it didn't seem to be an either or proposition. And I have a question just about the nature of the historic preservation funds. Are we able to reallocate those funds to the operating budget in the way that Alderwoman Ward has suggested? I mean, in other words, my understanding is that the RUST grant is used in a very particular way, and that funding was for historic resident or people who live in historic residences to apply for a grant to be supported through Rust funds for those ADA upgrades?
Mr. Gleason?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I'm not sure that I have the answer. Jeff, would you know anything about the usage of the funds? And if not, that's an answer I could provide prior to the next council meeting.
Jeff, do you know?
I would want to confirm as well. I thought that the Rust grants were funded through the general fund, but and Melissa's shaking her head yes, so I think that's correct. So if it is funded through the general fund, then the next component of this, I think, according to Councilmember Ward, is when this comes back to the council for a council amendment, we'll also address that. But this motion on the table will just lower that brick to that $15,000 amount.
I actually just wanted, Molly, if I could, along these lines, relative to something that Councilmember Emig mentioned, why is there a trade-off necessarily between brick streets and making ADA compliance?
So I don't see this as a trade-off right here. Okay. I'm not saying don't do anything for brick streets this year. That the 15,653 represents 7 utility repairs that were on a list as kind of high priority for this year, and that's how I'm coming to that amount, and that there. I guess there are 16 pending brick street repairs. And so with that 15,653, we would knock out 7 of them. And so I'm not proposing it's an either or, I'm suggesting it's a both and that we can put some toward brick streets. In addition to the $89,000 that we've done over the last 3 years from the Rust grant leftover money, but that perhaps it's also time to send a signal that ADA compliance is also something that's important to us. Over the years, we've made the decision that that the Rust funds could be used toward accessibility. So far, nothing has been spent from those Rust funds toward accessibility. $89,000 plus almost $16,000 will have gone toward brick streets. Now it's time to turn our attention to the other things. So it's not an either or, but a both and.
I do want to ask Mr. Gleason, I'm going to turn to Jeff. I know you wanted to speak, Councilmember Craybill. Do we have an idea of how much do we spend on ADA accessibility every year?
I can pull that up, see if I've got a recent email that I could.
Or even just a vague, okay. Well, I'll turn to Councilmember Craybill then.
Real quick, Mayor, I didn't see Economic Development and Community Development Director Melissa Hahn on. Melissa, do you want to take a stab at the original question that Jeff and I passed on?
Sure. The money is allocated from the general fund for the Rust and the Funk grants. There is an accessibility component in the Rust grants for accessibility issues for the downtown historic district. And I'm not sure at this point, with it being the end of the fiscal year, if we would be able to do a budget amendment. So that would be a finance question.
You don't have any idea, I mean, outside of this, how much we spend, because we spend a lot of money on accessibility, right? But we don't have any idea what that is outside of this?
I don't know. I would have to get that from Public Works.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Craybill.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, great question you had, and I look forward to the answer on that. Molly, I really appreciate the comments that you made, and I generally agree with them. But I just want to kind of touch a little bit on the original purpose of the Rust grants and making downtown businesses more accessible. And I don't want to make sure we're not forgetting about that. And just like you said, I think keeping in mind that this is for the benefit of the people with disabilities so that they could fully live their lives like anyone else. And I think things like sidewalk cuts, those types of things to make those ADA accessible. That should be that should be paid for, whether it's through streets or sidewalk budgets, not through a grant. Same thing with bricks, right? We set aside saying we're going to do this type of work, and we should have this shouldn't be coming from grant money for accessibility. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I'll leave it at that.
Anyone else? Okay. Councilmember Matthew. Jamie?
Molly, can you help me understand what you mean when you say street crossings? What does that mean to you? Because I'm not sure what you're talking about right now.
Well, there are a number of issues with street crossings. Foremost in my mind has to do with simply having curb cuts that allow people who are not able to easily navigate stepping down from a curb or stepping up from a curb to get across the street. That's what I'm talking about with street crossing areas. There are also other issues with regard to street crossings that need to be attended to, and that has to, one, for example, has to do with having audible signals at street crossings so that people who are visually impaired are able to safely cross the street. There are numerous issues with that in the downtown area as well. And the street crossings in terms of the curb cuts and so forth are just, they're overwhelming in terms of how much of a problem that is. So those are the two things that I was primarily referring to.
Jamie?
Okay, so can you help me understand why not, if we have $1 million in the budget just for sidewalk repairs, why not create a priority list of areas you think we need to hit right now that uses the money that we already have allocated for sidewalks?
I'm fine with doing that too, but at this point we have this amount of money. Why not put the brick streets in the street repair budget? It's the same. It's by that way of thinking, we should be allocating $1 million for brick street repairs from the street repair budget. We have this money. It's used for it can be used for brick streets, or it can be used for accessibility. And I'm suggesting that it's time for accessibility to have a turn.
Okay, so I'm going to be voting no to this one, not because I don't think accessibility is important, but I think that we should just better prioritize the way that money is already budgeted. You're right that we could budget money for brick streets. However, that has not been the will of council to actually fund the master streets plan of brick streets plan that we passed years ago. So getting a little bit of money to provide, some repairs to those streets in areas where we haven't been able to fully fund the repairs that are needed. It seems unfair to me to take money away from one group and move it someplace else when we already have a pot of money that is set aside specifically for sidewalks. I get where you're coming from. I just think that, this is not the right pool of money to move, and we'd be better served by just reprioritizing how the sidewalks are repaired in the city. If there are issues that you believe, I would fully support an amendment, your council amendment when you get to it, to say we want to prioritize these things in our sidewalks using the money that we already allocated. 100% behind you. I just don't think that this is the pool of money that I would allocate to that.
I'm going to turn to City Manager Gleason. He's got the answer to the earlier question. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to read a response that I've got regarding ADA and how we spend the $1.2 million that's allocated for sidewalks every year. Approximately 75 curb ramps are made ADA compliant on a yearly basis. There is $1.2 million budgeted annually for the sidewalks. About 20% of the budget goes to making corner ramps ADA compliant. About 60% goes to removing replacing lengths of sidewalks along city blocks. And the remaining 20% of the budget goes to addressing specific ADA complaints and spot locations where the sidewalks have shifted vertically. The entire sidewalk budget goes to making our sidewalks ADA compliant.
Okay. All right. Anyone else before we call the question here? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
We have
Oh, Donna, Councilmember Boland.
in Korea.
Okay. Councilmember Boland.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment real quick that it's my understanding every time they resurface streets that they have to replace the ramps. So that would be part of the street or asphalt concrete type work that's allocated from the gas tax.
Right. Okay. Councilmember Carrillo.
Yeah, I am in agreement with Councilmember Ward that the ADA, like I don't think the point that she's making is that we aren't spending any money on ADA, but it's that if this is, she's not the person who's proposing that we reallocate this money. We got a proposal from staff about this money being repurposed for something else. And I think that, the thing to do here is to prioritize ADA, but I'd really like to see us keep this money downtown as much as possible and have it go towards businesses who struggle to make their facilities ADA compliant. We already offer matching programs, so I think that would be a good compromise for a place that this can go that can that can benefit us. So I guess the question is for Councilmember Ward about whether she would be open to amendments or whether she wants the proposal. Maybe if she can just restate the proposal that she's making, that would be helpful.
Councilmember Ward, go ahead.
You know, I'm open to businesses helping businesses become more ADA compliant, but at this point, none of the businesses applied for that opportunity. The Rust grant already allows them to do that. And nobody did that this year. And apparently very few of them did that since 2018. And so that's why the money is there to begin with.
I guess, and maybe I should have been more clear. I think that the level to which the city can contribute can be upped. I guess that would be my proposal, rather than like rededicating it to brick streets, which feels like a stretch. Actually saying, well, maybe the reason that folks aren't coming through, particularly in the times of a pandemic, that those updates aren't their biggest priority. And if we could contribute a bigger piece, then folks would take us up and would be willing to put in a quarter if we could put in 3/4. So that's something that I would be interested in exploring. I guess. Okay. Sorry if I didn't make that clear.
I would be open to that amendment.
Yeah. So then I can I make that?
Go ahead. If we have a second, if the maker of the motion is okay with this, the amendment, and then we'd ask the seconder.
Looks like Jeff wants to.
Jeff.
Yeah, just for a point of clarification, I think the motion on this though is reducing the contract amount with George Gildner, and then the next discussion through an initiative will be on the use of the remaining funds and things like that. So I just want to clarify if it's still the intent to lower the amendment to that $15,000 and some change that you mentioned, or if it's now more than just that, just to get that cleared for the record.
Yeah, I think it's getting increasingly confusing here. Councilmember Ward, I'm going to go back to you. Do you understand what the question is then, the concern by legal?
Certainly. And I'm happy to amend the amendment to move that the amount of $82,784 be reduced to $15,653, and that the remaining $67,131 be returned to the general fund for use during fiscal year 22 on increasing the amount that the city will provide businesses seeking grants in order to be more ADA compliant.
Can that be done, Jeff?
Yeah,
that's not what I thought was going to happen here.
Yeah,
So-
and I apologize, since that's not specifically on the agenda. My recommendation would to treat this in two parts. The first part tonight being lowering this award to $15,653, and then we can come back later with the budget amendment and that designation of the use of funds, if that is all right with the council.
Right. So we can't put something on the agenda that's not on the agenda.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Councilmember Carrillo.
And so then that buys us a little bit more time to also discuss the details of how that money is then reallocated. So yeah, I would be supportive of that.
Okay. So who was the seconder of the motion? Councilmember Bray. Are you okay with that amendment? Kim?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion that is amended on the floor, which is, again, Jeff, you can clarify, to reduce this amount to $15,000 or whatever the amount was, $161, $31, that was cited earlier, and that the determination of that will be made at a later point in terms of how that is allocated. Is that correct? Okay. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll on the motion as amended?
I think that
Councilmember Painter. Yeah. Okay. We've actually we've actually spent more time on this, frankly, than we spent on the entire budget. Councilmember Painter, go ahead.
Maboka has the question.
Oh, Maboka has the question? Maboka.
I think it's fine. Let's just not complicate things any further. Let's just go with that while we have some clarity.
Okay, so we know what we're voting on. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey?
No.
Councilmember Bolin?
Yes.
Councilmember Milawambwe?
Yes.
Councilmember Emig?
Yes.
Councilmember Painter?
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Craybill?
Yes.
Councilmember Bray?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to next go to the items that were pulled. Councilmember Bolin, item O, and then item P. O is in ostrich. Councilmember Matthey? I'm sorry.
I apologize, Mayor. I need to recuse myself on these two topics. I realize I have a conflict.
Okay. Okay, we're going to start with item. Did you want to start with O? I think you might have said P in that order, Donna.
Well, they're tied together, but
Okay.
if the zoning is not approved, then the project will not be approved. So I'm going to start with the zoning and just try to focus on that first.
Okay, go ahead. So you started
Okay.
with P. Okay.
I start with P, and it has to do with the zoning. Mr. Taylor made the public comment about this particular item. He also attended both commission meetings, and he's been sending emails. I've gotten several emails from residents. I've done a lot of due diligence on this. I reached out to all the council members with what I call my novella. It was a 2-page summary with all the background. And most of the stuff was a negative feedback. So what I would like to do is make a motion to reject the zoning amendment, but I would like to also have some discussion.
Okay, I'm sure there will be. Let's see if there's a second to that. Is there a second to that motion? I can't see everybody here, Madam Clerk, however I will have this. Second by Councilmember Bray. I just have a quick question. Councilmember Bray, the negative feedback, did Mr. Taylor speak? Was he in the zoning board? Because the zoning board approved this.
Yes, he did.
Okay, and I would just like to say, because I wasn't at the zoning board, but this proposed development is something that was discussed to me. Again, this is all, of course, hearsay. The zoning board couldn't consider this anyway, by one of the most responsible, aggressive developers, Bobby Viricella, that we have in our community. Quite some time ago. And I saw some of the concerns, and I'm just going to turn it to you, Donna. I'm still confused as to what the concerns are. This is an unusually different type of development. It's a manufactured home park in an area that the zoning board seemed to think was fine. What are their issues?
Well, do you want me to read the 20 pages that I have?
No, I'm assuming,
No, I'm
something like
happy-
that could, yeah, I think something like that you could probably boil down to 3 sentences, right? What is 2 or 3 things? What are they concerned about? Is it just that they don't want, frankly, do they not, this is the rough way to put it is, do they not just want poor people near them?
Oh, don't start with that.
But that's the way I see it, Donna. I'm
No,
sorry.
don't start. First of all, both the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance says that there needs to be orderly development. And if you look at that stretch of land along Bike Road, it starts with manufacturing with the Ferrero and the New Way. The next plot of land is a C1, which is medium density, single family housing. The next plot of land is, did I say C2? The first one is C2. The next one is C1, which allows for single family detached and duplexes and triplexes, so multifamily.
Sure.
And then, so there are 2 properties. The one in question is currently zoned as a C1, which would allow for multifamily and single family.
Okay.
The people that live in those adjacent neighborhoods, they have median income. The houses that are currently there are at the price point of between 100 and 150. These are not rich people. Ward 2 has a tremendous amount, three quarters of the housing stock of manufactured housing is in Ward 2. So you cannot say that Ward 2 is afraid of having low-income housing.
Well, I'm not saying Ward 2. I'm talking about like 1 or 2 people who are concerned about this. But the other question is, the zoning board didn't seem to have any problem with orderly development here, right?
Well, actually, they did question that.
Well, but that's not the conclusion they came to.
Well, there was discussion about that. They did not come to that conclusion, but I've been conflicted and I've been following this since February. So I went to both, I went to the Zoom on both meetings. I talked to Bobby. I talked to the realtor that is on the other side of the sale. I'm very concerned and sympathetic with Habitat for Humanity because they're the ones that are trying to sell the property so that they can use it to build affordable housing on individual plots closer to the core. Now, also my issue is, and again, this goes back to the comp plan and the zoning ordinance. It's putting this manufactured home district in that area without access to city amenities does not correspond to the vision of the city. So, that concerns me. And then in addition, the developer presented to the Planning Commission that the closest type of the same type of development along Bike Road was Prairie Place. And Prairie Place is zoned as RH1, which is for the purpose of manufactured housing on permanent foundations where the lot is owned by the homeowner. Manufactured home parks are manufactured houses put on a slab and rented from the developer. So right there is misinformation that was put out. The actual comparison would be the manufactured home park like Greenwood Estates or Cardinal Ridge. The difference being for this particular PUD is that it would have city-owned streets. Also, the plan is asking for a waiver to reduce green space by 10%. Now there's very limited green space and public space in a manufactured home pod. So I would not even support that if the rezoning was not, was approved. So, you know, I've been struggling with this.
Sure.
Don't think.
Oh, I'm asking you questions. So
Sure.
Thank you. Anybody, other questions, comments? Councilmember Craybill and Bray.
Thanks, Mayor, and I want to express appreciation for what how much Donna has delved into the issue, and you know, we've talked a couple of times extensively about this. I've reviewed all the Planning Commission packets and listened to both Planning Commission meetings because, you know, I'm all for affordable housing, but and this is shown in Donna, I don't know if you mentioned what Strong Towns says about these types of developments, but I am concerned about the people that would live in the park. They don't own the land. And there has been examples in this community where those homeowners have been abused financially because these homes don't appreciate in value. They decrease in value, right? And so, and what there's been, you know, what I've been told, you know, of course, not with Mr. Verselli because he doesn't own one yet or built one yet, but others that have, you know, basically, you know, when you want to sell your house, you want to leave, right? It's, you know, you have to find another owner and they have to be approved by the owner of the property. And the owner can abuse that privilege by saying, oh, I'm going to reject that that buyer. I'm going to reject this buyer, but you can sell it to me for about 10,000 less if you like. And then eventually it's a rental property, right? And then, you know, how well are they going to maintain that rental property for people, you know, people coming in? So I just think it's a bad deal if people don't own the land underneath.
Let's see, Councilmember Bray.
Thank you, Mayor. And I seconded this motion because I too spent some time reviewing this. Certainly, we do have a community member who has really performed well in development in our city, and we certainly appreciate that and just that kind of professionalism and the work that's done there. But at the same time, we can't go at this from the standpoint of personality. We have to look at the project. And I spent, 2-3 hours down visiting the site. Also visited the site that was, or the particular park that was set out as an example, and had the opportunity to interview some of the folks that are living in that particular park. Again, that was used as an example. And I believe the person one of the people that really impressed me was someone who's lived in that particular park for decades, and made mention that he can't sell his property. And I also did some measurements, and there's just difficulty selling them because of the value. I believe I did some research after that and found out that those particular homes were going to sell around $80,000, $78,000, $80,000. But yet this park is talking about $150,000. That didn't quite seem to match. That park has, those folks own their own ground. The proposed park, the folks won't own their own ground. I don't really see this as an affordable housing issue. I see it as a mismatch between a project idea and this particular site. And so for that reason, I'll be voting no.
You'll be voting, well, but the motion is to deny.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for keeping me straight. I'll be voting
for the motion to deny.
For the motion to deny.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see any other hands. Madam
Molly Wood.
Oh, Molly, did you want to?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to speak up in favor of allowing this project to go forward based on the impact that it will have on Habitat for Humanity's efforts to provide affordable housing. Keep in mind that the property is undeveloped now because Habitat doesn't have the means to develop it, and that they can use the funds from the sale of this to provide affordable housing in the core. And I'd like to not let that go without comment, because I think that if we're talking about wanting to further the goal of affordable housing, it's an open field right now. It's not serving anybody in terms of affordable housing. Whereas
Sure.
with the sale of this property, it can lead to more affordable housing. So let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Thank you very much. At this point, then, we will go ahead and, oh, sorry. Who else? I can't see the full screen. I'm not sure what's going on here with me. Who wants to speak?
I do.
Oh, Johnny, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, Johnny.
I called up Habitat for Humanity and asked them why they sold this property.
Oh, sure.
And they said that they had it for 10 years and the cost to maintain it was a bit of a drain. But the big deal was the cost to provide infrastructure was cost prohibitive to them. And I'm just thinking, in the long view of things, if the city would provide the infrastructure, which I know we don't like to do anymore, but since this is Habitat, they could build some really fine, affordable housing, and it would not be a problem for the neighbors. We would have, a good tax base there. I think in the long run, it would be a wash. So I'd like you to consider that as well.
Thank you. Anybody else? I've got Councilmember Emig.
Yeah, thank you. This has also been a really challenging issue for me for all the reasons everyone has mentioned. I just want to point out too that the location of these manufactured homes, they're not really accessible to a grocery store or just public transportation as well. And that's just another consideration. I want to acknowledge that some of the feedback I've received suggests that real estate, the market is changing significantly, that these kinds of homes might in fact be really reasonable investments as they improve and become more sustainable in terms of energy, and that it won't so much be a loss of your equity. But in the end, it does seem that there are enough concerns about having a landowner be responsible for that. And I really appreciate what Alderman Bray said about the fit, like finding the right thing. And so I'll not support this, but I also encourage us to really therefore think about what affordable housing can and should be in this community, and how to do it so that we really are thinking about the long-term ramifications.
Councilmember Boland, and then we're going to go to the question.
Well, thank you for all the feedback, because one of the reasons I sent all this stuff to you is I really appreciate the collective wisdom of everybody's input, and to address what affordable housing basically out of the comprehensive plan is less than 30% of the household income. So that's the definition of affordable housing. And actually there's a trend coming along, I believe it's in Hayworth, that I found out from the Realtors, that modular homes are becoming very popular. They're also affordable, just like the manufactured homes. They can be set up rapidly like a manufactured home, and you place them on a lot that's owned by the homeowner. And that for me is the biggest thing, because that's the philosophy of Habitat for Humanity.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, the motion and second is a motion to deny. So Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Boland?
Yes.
Councilmember Millawamboy?
Yes.
Councilmember Emig?
Yes.
Councilmember Painter?
Yes.
Councilmember Currio?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
No.
Councilmember Craybill,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Motion carries. There's one nay to announce, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Ward.
Okay, thank you very much. And so, Jeff, we don't have to do anything since P was denied. We don't have to go to O. Is that correct, Jeff?
Sorry, I was muted. No, I would still recommend that you take formal action since it's not going to be rezoned, that petition be denied as well.
Okay, is there a motion then on item O?
I will make a motion since I pulled it.
Okay, is there
Second.
second?
Deny.
Okay, excuse me, who did the second?
Me.
Oh, Jen, okay. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Millawamboy,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Craybill,
Yes.
and Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Motion carries, no nays to announce, Madam Clerk, and we move on to our regular agenda, and that is 9A, and that is consideration and action to approve the Arthur Gallagher proposal of insurance in the amount of $1,884,576. And we have a brief 10-minute presentation by staff and Mike Nugent, and then a brief council discussion. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gleason. Tim?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the annual renewal. Every year we ask that Mike Nugent prepare a presentation for the community. I know that there's been discussions with council prior to this and ask for approval once the presentation's complete. Also, we have Alex Rosas with the Human Resources Department. Alex, do you want to kick this off before Mike starts?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council and City Manager Gleason. So like you mentioned, every year we undergo these citywide insurance renewals. And we've been fortunate over the years to collaborate with Nugent Consulting and Mike Nugent, the owner. And he's just been a tremendous asset, to the city. He's got 40 plus years of experience in the insurance field. And with this being an especially challenging year due to COVID and the market, we were still able to navigate that needed coverage with less impact that was anticipated initially. So I'll turn it over to Mike and he can walk us through the processes and the challenges that we face this year.
Thank you, Alex. I'm going to share my screen here. Give me a second. So Alex said I have 40 years experience. Obviously, I started when I was 10. Not when I was 22. So just to clarify that. So every year we sit down roughly in October, although not so much sitting down this past October, more Zooming, to talk about renewal plans. This was following a really difficult renewal in 2020 that resulted in a 24% increase in the insurance costs and increased some deductibles on some of the lines of coverage. The market in 2020 hadn't really even factored in COVID yet. As you remember, the shutdown really was about March 13th or so, and this renewal was April 1st. So May 1st. So we had figures coming in before insurers really had a chance to wrap their arms around the impact of COVID on so many lines of insurance, and that has been somewhat dramatic. So we had our October sit down on Zoom again this past October, and unfortunately I had to inform staff that the market was actually worse this October than it was the previous October, partly COVID, partly a lot of other stuff that we'll get into once we get into the meat of the presentation. And we continue to update January, February, and March. The biggest dynamic in this market, or the biggest challenge in this market, is the fact that it is such a dynamic market. It's changing constantly. In the middle of February, the cyber market completely collapsed out of nowhere. Although it should have been foreseen, insurers were kind of unprepared for
the extent of ransomware that has really ratcheted up during COVID. So again, it's very, very challenging to provide the city with estimates in October and have any clue what's actually going to happen for May 1st. So what's changed? The property market actually, which was really bad in 2020, seemed to be leveling off a little bit. So I was somewhat optimistic about the property renewal. And then the Texas storms hit. And as anybody who's been involved in the insurance for Bloomington in the past, you realize that storms throughout the country, in fact, impact everyone in the country. So you may have Florida hurricanes, you may have California fires, or Texas storms. We all pay for that. And so the market that seemed to be settling down a little bit went right back into a tailspin. The excess liability market, which has been the most challenging, is still volatile in 2021. It's very hard to find insurers that want to provide excess liability coverage to municipalities right now. A huge part of that is civil unrest. A huge part of that is law enforcement liability. Just the stuff in the paper every day is creating a situation where insurers are fleeing the municipal market, not flocking to it. And the capacity in the umbrella market has certainly reduced significantly in the past couple of years, making those prices really, really expensive. I mentioned the ransomware situation where the cyber market really imploded. And I give kudos to our insurance broker, Arthur Gallagher and Company, for finding not just a viable alternative, but one that actually has better coverage than what we had prior to the market collapsing. In addition to the challenges the market has, we had our second large property loss in 2020. And Alex, if anybody wants the details, Alex has a pretty good thumb on those. But we've had two substantial property losses that have been paid by insurers. This latest one is more than the insurance premiums we paid in 2020. And in this market, that can be a real challenge. I again give credit to our insurance broker Gallagher, because they were able to explain the uniqueness of the two losses we've had over the last 3 years, and the fact that they're unusual enough where it's not a trend, it's not lack of maintenance, it's not lack of care by the city. These are just accidents, and that's why you buy insurance. So we've got a decent result on property given our loss portfolio. So that's also good news. May not feel like it when you look at the pricing, but it is. And then the other challenge was in the fall of last year, we were told that the Coliseum would no longer purchase its own liquor coverage, that we needed to take that over. And our primary casualty insurer, who doesn't really do liquor liability, it's normally a separate coverage, agreed to do it for no charge to get us through renewal. And as we got closer to renewal, they really don't have any interest in providing the coverage. So we had to go out and get separate coverage for the liquor coverage, not just for the Coliseum, but for the golf courses as well. And that added some cost to the program that wasn't necessarily part of this program a year before. So let me move my visual here. So this is a summary of the renewal, 2020 renewal. What the total cost was $960,935. The budget throughout this process was for a 30% increase. Again, credit to Gallagher for coming in with better terms than the 30% that I projected. But on the other hand, if you look down to the bottom, we are seeing a significant increase in the police and fire workers' compensation self-insured retention, which is the amount the city pays on a per claim basis before it gets to insurance. That's actually where the market has been. You have had outstanding experience on work comp in those higher layers. You might feel like from an aggregate standpoint, you've got a lot of police claims and fire claims, and we spent a fair amount on those claims. But from a large claim standpoint, we've had pretty good experience. And that's what allowed us to keep the 600,000 self-insured retention for the last few years. But now it's not about Bloomington's experience anymore. It's about the market. It's about the insurers taking an opportunity to push further away from having to pay a claim. And there's just no other option out there versus the 750. So I am disappointed in that aspect of it. And that's partly why you can see the work comp premium actually went down because we pushed back and said, look, if you're going to raise it from 600 to 750, you've got to give us a little bit relief. Their first renewal quote was in the $350,000 range with this big increase in self-insured retention. And that was just a non-starter as far as I was concerned. We have an option 2, which I'll explain, is reducing this excess liability limit from 21 million. So you actually have a total of 20 versus 21. The 21 million appeared kind of accidentally about 6 or 7 years ago when we changed insurers, and they had a little bit different structure. And instead of the 20 million, we got this extra $1 million for free. And then we just continued to renew that. My recommendation is that our target had always been 20 million. We didn't want an extra 1 million. It's kind of an odd number anyway. And the savings in this environment, I think, is worthwhile. So I'm recommending option 2, which takes the overall increase down to 13%. So again, just to recap, the liability rate from our primary casualty insurer is flat. It's increases in exposures that have raised that premium. The property rate's up 15%, which I expected more given our loss portfolio and given what's going on in the market. The cyber insurer is new, but better coverage. I mentioned the self-insured retention. I mentioned option 2. And then the one thing that's not in detail here is that the city does have some very old underground storage tanks. It's actually not unusual. And the insurance market is pulling away from those as well, saying if you want to insure those, you're going to have to take a significantly larger deductible should we have a leak or other issues. So those are the big differences between 2020 and 2021. This is a graphic of the program, and anywhere where you see, I'm colorblind, so work with me. I believe this is orange on the bottom. Wherever you see orange, that's the amount the city takes, and the rest of this are the various insurance coverage lines. And I'm happy to answer questions. I believe the mayor is muted. Sorry.
I'm okay. I've got 2 screens, and the cursor was on the other screen, and I couldn't bring it over. At this point, questions or comments or a motion? Councilmember Matthey.
Thanks, Mayor. Mike, I was wondering if that the big solar winds hack that happened in February, was that also something that contributed to the crazy price increase in cyber? Because
yeah,
a lot of places.
Yeah, huge part of what's happening in the cyber market is solar winds, without a doubt. It just completely has undermined any confidence in system security. The insurers right now, and we got past this, but you're in pretty good shape. But right now, if you don't have multi-factor authentication for remote access to your system, you will not get cyber coverage in 2021. So it absolutely has been a huge driver and flipped the cyber market on its head.
Okay, I was just curious. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that answer.
Any other questions, comments, or a motion? Councilmember Miliwampwe.
Sure. I had a question, and the question could go to either Mike or staff. I'm intrigued by your mention of underground storage tanks. And so I'm curious what is needed from us. Do we have them? How many do we have? And what is needed from us to remove that sort of exposure in the future?
You do have them, and I'll turn to Alex. You do have them, and like most municipalities, they're older. They weren't meant to be replaced every 5 years or so. So some of them, I think, are in the 30-year range. And just in the last 2 years, the insurance market has pushed back on older tanks. So if you want my advice is to use your capital budget over the next couple of years and try and replace the older ones. But again, given the environment, I don't make recommendations on spending money.
Okay,
Other
thank
questions, comments? Is there a motion then? Moved by Councilmember Painter. Do you have a motion? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve this as presented.
Is there a second by Councilmember Bolin with the two? Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Millawamboy,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Craybill,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. No nays to announce, Madam Clerk. We go into item 9B on our regular agenda, and that's presentation discussion of the Pscrb annual report. And that is, we're going to have a report by Chairman Robert Bosquez. We also have Michael Hurt, our Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer, and Chad Wamsley, Assistant Police Chief. But I'm going to start, there's a 10-minute, 10 and 10. There's no motion here. It's presentation only. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Gleason. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And the members of the Pscrb. I know that we have staff representatives with Michael Hurt and Assistant Chief Wamsley, but really do appreciate the efforts of this team that serve our community. I haven't seen the presentation, but did see the results of the survey, the Police Chief Selection Survey recently. And when I first heard that there were over 11,000 respondents, I figured I just misheard the number. But that is correct. It's quite impressive, and appreciate the comments and the work on the part of the Pscrb for a decision, that I've got to make in the near future, and plan on starting that process here in about a month. Chief Chief Wamsley or Michael, or does this go directly to Robert?
I think it's listed on here as, I think it goes to Rob. Robert, you want to start?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor and City Council. Please bear with me as I read this. This is the 2020 Public Safety and Community Relations Board Annual Report. This annual report is intended to provide a brief summary of activities of the Public Safety Community Relations Board for year 2020. Some of the highlights we had this past year as we review the monthly and quarterly meeting dates, presentations to and feedback from the community, a report on complaints presented, and board rule amendments. The review of the monthly and quarterly meeting dates, the Pscrb established monthly meeting dates for the first Thursday of each month. Quarterly meetings were scheduled for the first Thursday of each quarter. Meeting places for January and February were held at the City of Bloomington Fishbowl. All March and April meetings were canceled due to COVID. All other meetings were held virtually. The presentations to and feedback from communities. Monthly meetings included reports from the Bloomington Police Department on the number of complaints received in the previous month, year-to-date, and pending investigations. Future meeting dates and locations and pending discussions items were also discussed. The Bloomington Police reported that for 2020, there were 22 total complaints received, compared with 11 complaints received in 2019 and 20 in 2018. Topics at meetings included introduction of board members, recruitment of minority police officers. The Bloomington Police Department introduced a wellness class for officers. The mayor requested the Pscrb to take a look at the current Bloomington Police Department practices and evaluate them. Results of these public meetings and feedbacks to be presented in the 2021 annual review. There's also presentations of the marijuana laws from the Bloomington Police Department, the review of board rules. We also reviewed the Bloomington Police Department complaint review process. There was addition of youth board members to our current board. We also introduced Michael Hurt, the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. Feedback and questions from the community are received well by the board and actions taken from suggestions. Report on complaints presented. The PSCRB received 5 requests for review in 2020 through the City Legal Department. 2020-R-01, the board received this request in December of 2020. The board received the citizens request for review and requested additional information from the Bloomington Police Department and the Legal Department. This incident occurred in September of 2020. Following all established board rules and maintaining confidentiality guidelines, the board found that the Bloomington Police Department had followed its complaint review process, exonerating the police officers in question, and did not recommend any policy or practice revisions. Complaint 2020-R-02, 03, and 04. The board received these 3 requests for review in December of 2020. Information was gathered and prepared for review of the board. These incidents occurred in September of 2020. Rules and regulations and their interpretations had continuously changed on face mask suggestions. This also had been true with the Bloomington Police Department. A directive has now been put in place and is very clear for officers on when face coverings should be worn. As a result, these complaints are considered sustained/training deficiency. Complaint 2020-R-05. The board received this request in late January of 2021. Information was gathered and prepared for review of the board. This incident occurred in July of 2020. Following all established board rules and maintaining confidentiality guidelines, the board found that the Bloomington Police Department had followed its complaint review process, exonerating the police officer in question, and did not recommend any policy or practice revisions. Action items, board rule amendment recommendations. The PSCRB recommended the following board rules amendments, which were approved by City Council in October 2020. Chapter 2, Section 2B. In addition to the cases it reviews, the board may make recommendations to the police chief and/or the city manager based on the board's community outreach efforts and its ongoing dialogue with city residents. See Code Chapter 35, Article 4, Section 81A. In addition, the board may also make recommendations based on public input and the analyzation of data for changes to policies, practices, and procedures to the mayor, the city council, police chief, and/or city manager. The PSCRB recommended the following edition of Ordinance 2021-11, which was approved in March 2021. This should be included in the annual report for 2021 as well. The addition of 2 youth board members of ages 16 to 21 will serve a 1-year term. And lastly, the PSCRB and Not in Our Town survey. The PSCRB and Not in Our Town Bloomington Normal together released an online public survey in the month of March on citizens' attitudes toward the Bloomington Police Department, offering opportunities for input on goals and priorities for the Bloomington Police Department. As City Manager Gleason said, over 11,000 citizens took this survey and provided feedback. We are currently reviewing the feedback and look forward to completing a report back to the mayor, city council, and city manager at a future date this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other comments from other staff members of the staff?
I'll go real quick here. Good evening, everyone. like I said, I just want to thank Chairman Vasquez for the report and how thankful I am to work with Chairman Vasquez as well as the rest of the Pscrb. This board as a whole is very good at reviewing all the facts and data that's available prior to making any of their decisions. Second thing I just want to mention real quick is all the reports that I prepare for Pscrb will now be available on the City of Bloomington website following the monthly meetings. And lastly, I would be remiss if I did not say this, and I'll probably embarrass Chairman Vasquez a little bit, but your leadership and your decisiveness and your experience is definitely going to be missed as we go forward with this board. So thank you for your service to this board. And that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank Chairman Vasquez for all of his hard work. That's and on behalf of the city and the elected officials. We're getting a virtual round of applause here. Thank you. At this point, any comments or questions from council members? Again, this is presentation only. Councilmember Bowler.
Yeah, I have a question because it seems that a lot of the feedback is coming from the downtown area. And there are portions of Ward 2 where there is police activity. And I was wondering if those residents are aware of the opportunity to come and share their concerns and their complaints about the police department so that there could be communication improvement.
So yeah, when we reach out to everybody, the whole city, and in all wards. It's not just basic downtown. I know this past year has been difficult with having virtual meetings. So some of that information has not been received due to some difficulties through virtual meetings. However, for the future, hopefully once we get back to meeting in person, we will definitely again make sure we push out through our board members, through city council, and the police department to involve everybody and anybody in Bloomington.
Other comments, questions? Seeing none, we want to thank you again and to thank to staff and the police. Appreciate all that you've done. And
thank you.
Best wishes to you, Robert. Appreciate everything you do. Next, we move to, if I can grab my glasses, item 9C. And this is consideration and action on the resolution declaring continued utility disconnection in Illinois to be a pandemic safety. There is a proposal, a presentation. This was pursuant to the council initiative by Councilmember Craybill. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Craybill. You have up to 5 minutes, and then council discussion is approximately 5 minutes. And at that time, we'll want a motion. Councilmember Craybill.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll be brief because we just discussed this last week. And last week, there was unanimous support to move forward with this resolution and put it on this week's agenda, which I very much appreciate. And basically, the resolution is saying that there's still a pandemic risk, especially if people's power or other utilities are turned off. So asking the governor to use his power in issuing a moratorium, as well as asking for our state body legislature to pass House Bill 2877. It's been approved by the House. It's in front of the Senate. I think Mr. Axelrod said there were 23 Senate sponsors so far. And that bill is important because it gives money directly, to utilities, to landlords, cutting out a step in the process, which may lessen the need for shutoffs. Like City Manager Gleason and Mayor Renner said at the beginning of the meeting, we had 162 new cases over the weekend. So we're still in this pandemic and people still need help. And so I'll just go ahead and move to approve the resolution as presented. And then, we can have a discussion from there. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Carrillo. At this point, comments? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you call I'm sorry, Councilmember Boland. Sorry.
No, that's okay. The only thing I want to add, I got an email. I have Nicor Gas, and I got an email that they have set up a program for. It's not necessarily wiping out or whatever, but it is a program if you wish to apply to set up a payment schedule. And I think that I just want to put it out there that there are a lot of available resources that people can draw on. But I appreciate what you're doing, Jeff.
Thanks, Donna, for mentioning that.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, go ahead. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Millawamboy,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Craybill,
Yes.
and Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Thank you. We move next to our Finance Director's report, and I'm going to turn it actually over to Mr. Gleason if you have any preparatory comments there. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped. Put my glasses back on so I don't do this again. Consideration of potential action on the item D, the emergency COVID ordinance, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Gleason and then a brief council discussion. Mr. Gleason, I apologize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. No modifications recommended at this time.
Questions of Mr. Gleason? Councilmember Matthey.
Thanks, Mayor. Tim, I was wondering at our next meeting, could we get an update in terms of where we're at with both the residential and the business relief programs we put in place? And, I've heard a few comments from both residential and business that people felt like that they were rejected when they shouldn't have been because they met the qualifications. So I was wondering if we could get a breakdown of why people are being rejected in either program, and if there's things that we could do to modify those to make it access to those funds easier if that's what we need to do. Maybe do that as a review for our meeting in May, or first meeting in May, or it could be the committee of the whole in May, but sooner than later so that we can look at those programs and make sure they're having the intended effects.
We'll do it. We'll have it for the council meeting May 10th.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else? Seeing none, we'll move on now to the Finance Director's report. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor. We continue to trend very well as a community. We are stronger than most, which is not suggesting that there is not a financial impact, a negative financial impact because of COVID. But we're doing very well compared to many other Illinois municipalities. Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Gleason. Very correct in that we are doing well. Tonight, we're going to run through the numbers relatively quickly. We'll spend a little bit more time next month. We are 11 months into the fiscal year. However, due to some of our major revenue categories in the sales taxes specifically, on a 2-month lag, we're really just 9 months in on some of those major revenues. So we still have a ways to go to get complete visibility on how we're going to end the year, but it's looking very favorable right now. Tax revenues are either doing well, like income tax and replacement tax and use tax, or they're rebounding nicely from COVID at this point. And you combine that with the CURE grant, the $3.2 million that we got from the local CURE grant, and a lowering of expenses throughout the year. We're looking very positive for year end and being able to allocate some of those funds to our capital equipment, cash for purchases instead of the lease. So staying on that strategic trajectory for that. Enterprise funds are fairly well. There's been some comments related to solid waste, and I'll just point out, how we went into 21 related to solid waste in just a moment. So Phil, can you bring up the presentation, please? And next slide, please. So just briefly, excuse me, You're going to see, we always include the number of months collected out to the right. If you see 11, we're 11 months in. Really, those categories that are showing 11 right now are finalized for the year. Property tax, a replacement tax is kind of an oddball. We only get I think it's 8 payments during the year, and so that's finalized as well. But you can see for home rule and state sales tax through March, we've only received nine months so far. To highlight home rule, it has been trending up. At the start of the pandemic, our worst month, we were $600,000 under budget in 1 month. And our latest month, we were just $70,000 under budget. So we're trending up in that category. Very optimistic about that. State sales tax, if you look out to the far right, you can see what our last month variance was actually positive, 1.11%. So we were over budget for the past month in state sales tax. So again, very positive there. Income tax and replacement tax, those are 2 different kinds of income taxes that we get allocated, both over budget for the year. So there's, part of it, I'd say about $500,000 to $600,000 of the income tax overage so far year to date is related to the push out last year of the due date for income taxes. But you can still, even if you take $600,000 off that million, we'd be trending $400,000 ahead, and then we finish the year $166,000 ahead in replacement tax, the second line from the bottom. So many businesses out there are still doing fairly well in light of the pandemic. Delivery businesses, big box stores, things of that nature. Local motor fuel tax, I've commented several times that this could have a lingering concern for us with the remote workforce. However, this is starting to trend up a little bit as well. Far right column, you can see the last month, nearly 13% under budget. We've been trending more like 16, 17, 18% under. We were 16% the prior month. So a positive increase there. And then local use tax, $1 million over year to date. This is primarily our internet sales tax allocation. We're starting to see part of that local component up in the home rule, but this $1 million, that's primarily related to December sales. I guess I'll back up on that local use component or local component for a second. That hasn't gone into effect as of March yet, or March numbers. It went into effect in January, but we're not seeing it yet. So that local use, that $1 million over, we had a $200,000 overage in the prior month, and that's primarily related to December and the holiday sales. That was 84% over budget for that month. So, people using the internet, they're still spending money. The community, the economy is very optimistic still, even in light of COVID, and especially here locally. Next slide, please. This is our general fund statement of income and expenditures. The left-hand portion is the budget and how we're proceeding through the year. And then we have our adjustment to budget related to our projection. We're starting to dial this in a little bit as we go through the year. I'm just going to talk in high levels. Again, we're really looking at that projected column, projected budget adjustments, really breaking even as we see some of these revenue categories increase. We're allocating the savings, if you will, into the capital expenditures line, where we're going to kind of revisit this when we close out the year and push, pay for our equipment with cash, staying on that strategic goal that we've been discussing, weaning ourselves off the capital lease program. So right now, as things improve, we're bumping that capital expenditure line up each month. Next month, one more month closer to the end of the year, we'll be able to dial this in. I'll go through each one of these categories in a little bit more detail. But as of now, we're really looking at kind of holding our fund reserve even year to year, with some of that excess going to the capital equipment, cash for equipment. Next slide, please. The enterprise funds. Of note, you're going to look at the revenue trend, charges for services line near the bottom. You can see that our target 11 months through the year should be 92%. We had been trending over. Now we're a little under, and this is just related to an accounting timing issue that we're looking at related to going live with our utility billing conversion, or our utility billing system in Munis, going more to an accrual basis. We've reversed our accrual as of the end of the year last year. So this is going to true up at the end of the year, but you're just seeing a little bit of a dip there below the trend, but no concern. That's going to true up once we finalize the year as part of the audit. I've been kind of commenting lately on how well golf is doing compared to prior years. You can see, it's 83% of budget, whereas in 20, the pandemic was hitting, we were shut down. We were at 67% there, and it's actually doing a little bit better than we had been doing in 2019 as well. So that's very positive. And then the way, this is a very high level summary exhibit, but we have a budgeted use of fund balance line. It's right in the middle of the page. Primarily for most of the enterprise funds, that's going to be use of fund balance that was budgeted related to capital projects. But for solid waste, it does not have capital projects. So that $207,000 was basically a budgeted use of fund balance for the deficit, which Kevin Cothe, the Public Works Director, has been speaking to the community and council about lately. A much larger number than this, but as he's commented on, what's not included in the current year in 21 is really the capital equipment needs of solid waste. It's very capital equipment intensive, and those have been delayed pending these larger discussions that we're having. So again, I'll just summarize. The city is faring really well considering COVID. There are impacts, but some categories are doing very well, and we're rebounding in the other ones. The local cure grant money obviously helped us tremendously. Expense culture that we have within the city is also impacting things in a positive way for us as well. Other news, I just wanted to give a real quick comment on the utility billing conversion. I understand, and I know this was a little difficult for some of our residents. I kept mentioning during many of the presentations that it would be worth it on the other side, and we're starting to see the corner being turned. Just some statistics prior to the conversion and the use of our new payment portal, we had about 4,400 accounts signed up on paperless. We already have 4,700 accounts signed up on paperless. I'm just a month into utilizing the new system. We have almost 8,000 accounts registered online already. Prior, we were at 14,500, so we're already more than halfway there on getting accounts set up online for the residents. They're doing it themselves. And then we've had 852 accounts sign up for pay by text, and that's taking advantage of some of the new efficiencies in our system. So it was really good to kind of see those statistics and the utilization of that new system. So I think once the dust settles, everyone's going to kind of realize that it's a positive move for the city. Hopefully in the long term, it's going to be a cost savings and more efficient way of doing business with the city. So I just wanted to highlight that in exiting. So take a pause now and see if there's any questions related to any information I've shared.
Questions? Let's see. I'm trying to get the other view. Does anybody have
Bill, you can put down a presentation, please.
There we go. Any questions of Mr. Rathman? Thank you. And again, Scott, thank you so much for this. And we're sorry for your loss, Scott.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much.
Take care. Mr. Gleason, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we pull up the slides, I guess I'd like to say on behalf of myself, staff, very much appreciate the opportunity to have been able to work with you, Mayor, and Alderwoman Johnny Painter, and to my right, Alderwoman Kim Bray. Very much appreciate all three of your leadership, and it's been a quick nearly 3 years for me, and I know longer for many, but thank you very much, and wish you the best. Next item I wanted to share is that as we look for the direction and guidance on how we can use the COVID relief money, City of Bloomington's set to receive about $14 million. I think the number is 13.8 million. We do look to both of our Senators Duckworth and Durbin, their staff, and then our local Congressmen LaHood and Davis for direction. But I've got targeted one way or another having a work session, a discussion at our committee of the whole meeting on May 17th, and we'll provide any updates that we can and hopefully have a clearer picture on how we can use the funds that will be coming our way. Phil, if you would put up the first slide. Staff hires in April. We have Troy, Justin, and Frederick. Like showing these off and welcome these guys aboard to the city organization. Next slide. Farmers Market this Saturday. It's open downtown again. Ask that everybody be very cautious. Again, follow the guidelines, the CDC guidelines, but we're open for business downtown. And I think the weather forecast looks pretty good. Hope to see people down there. Next slide. Should be May 1st Friday. It's May 7th, and this is Unlock a Piece of History. It's 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. The first Friday, so that's not this coming, but next. Next slide. Prairie Vista, we have all three courses are open for the season, and they have been busy. As I've driven by all three of them, different times of the week. They are well attended. And I think there's a lot of people excited about being able to get out and just, enjoy the open air and the quality golf courses that we have at the City of Bloomington. That might be it. Is there more, Phil? And that is it. Thank you again, Mayor and Alderman Bray and Alderwoman Bray and Alderwoman Painter. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tim. And it's been a great pleasure not only working with you, Tim, but my council colleagues and staff. Again, very much appreciated. I did have some remarks. I didn't want to. They're not extensive. I didn't want to make them at the receipt of the recognition plaque, but we certainly have had lots of challenges over the last 8 years, but we've made lots of progress. Certainly one of the things when I talked about was open government, opening the doors to City Hall. The metaphor I used was I was hoping that we could have a City Hall surrounded by windows so that one from any part of town could come up, look in, see what they're paying for. And we've had a large amount of success with that. And that is, you don't have to be in a position where you have to fight City Hall, as sometimes people have suggested. We went from having an F from the Illinois Policy Institute for openness and transparency to an A+, 100%. We've had mayoral open houses, Bloomington 101, and our board and commission members are now a group of people, a couple hundred or so, that look like Bloomington. There's people who are people from the east side, west side, people of color, people who are Caucasian, young people, people who are my age and older. And it's not because there's an affirmative action program. It's because if we have more diverse inputs, we're going to make better decisions in the future for this community. And these are people who can be, especially with our younger people, the board and commission members can be the future city council members and mayors or community leaders of tomorrow. And that's really important. We need to continue to reflect the increasing diversity of our ever-changing city. We've certainly had lots of changes in working with our intergovernmental partners and Economic Development Council and our businesses with economic development and smart growth policies. And one of these policies, of course, at 500 feet are to take advantage of the expertise, or the talent and the advantages of our community, of our different neighborhoods, so that we don't pursue what we've seen very expensive and counterproductive policies massively subsidizing sprawl that we had for many decades. And some of that has been, of course, focusing on downtown development in our older neighborhoods to take, again, full advantage of our city's assets. So one of the most important things has been helping us to take full advantage of the Route 66, being on Route 66. Pontiac and many other cities that are much smaller than us had been taking advantages for a very long time. And the town of Normal, and we have certainly made some progress there. One of the earliest things we got was the Route 66 Visitor Center and a grant from the state, and put other money together from the CVB to make that happen. And we're literally on the map now, and an area that people don't drive around when they go from Pontiac to Atlanta, Illinois. That's really a critical part of making sure that our cultural historic core, our downtown thrives, as well as obviously general job creation and economic activity for our community. We have a viable downtown strategic plan and signage and lots of other strategic improvements. And of course, lately we've seen, as a byproduct perhaps of COVID, a renewed energy in outdoor dining and renewed vibrancy in our downtown. And it is one of our greatest assets. We know that we're going to have in the southeast part of downtown a library expansion. We know that at the core of our downtown, we're going to have the transfer center for Connect Transit, and that Connect Transit services have continually been improved. And this council and others have stepped up to the plate. We provided money along with the town of Normal to make sure that we have Sunday service and a really important mobile workforce for the future, so people can get from point A to point B in our community. We've got an award-winning, the best transit system in a small metropolitan area in all of North America just a few years ago. And with some specific projects, of course, we've had lots of success with the early on Hy-Vee, with a nearly abandoned landmark shopping center, which has become a magnet for other kinds of jobs and activity. They had Empire Crossing with TIF money, and in the also nearly abandoned Colonial Plaza. The old Bloomington Junior High School with senior apartments, which is certainly a victory, not just for economic development, but of course also for historic preservation. Some of the other things, of course, is the downtown mental health facility in the jail that this council and the town of Normal stepped up to the plate and funded this facility that's administered by the county. We've had Green Top Grocery, the first multi-million-dollar investment in Bloomington on Constitution Trail. And along with the attempt to try to revitalize our older neighborhoods and downtown other places, we had an improvement in our rental inspection program by two previous alderwomen who took the lead on that. And of course, the establishment of administrative court back in 2015. The word on the street was, you can get away with anything in Bloomington. You can't get away with much in Normal. That's not the case anymore. And in fact, when I had come in, one of the things I asked legal at that time, how many cases had we filed in circuit court? In the previous decade, we filed one case. Well, now, of course, those are the days of the past. And we're making sure that if we have people who are absentee landlords or deadbeat landlords or whatever, that they have to make sure that they have to do right by their tenants and do right by our community, that we're not in a situation where we have to clean up the mess. We certainly had some improvements in Coliseum management, and especially some of the more recent changes that have been led by our current city manager. That's also one of the things that's helped us across the board, was the great wisdom in hiring Tim Gleason as our city manager, who gets stuff done. Notice I said stuff. I'm trying to clean up my act at least a little bit. And we have some other really important projects. One of the most important neighborhood projects we've had in decades is the new O'Neill Pool Aquatic Center that was just a few weeks ago, this council approved and stepped up to the plate to do this. And this is important for not just the neighborhood, but for our west side, long neglected region of our community. And we've also had improvements in services on the west side, as well as partnerships with the Boys and Girls Club for a new facility, and improving many of the parks on the west side. And that's important for neighborhood pride, as well as helping people, the kids especially, who might otherwise get into trouble, get them on the right path. And related to that, of course, we have had back in 2015, and then Mr. Gleason put it in last year's budget, was a summer youth job program for at-risk youth. And that's really very important and critical for us for the future. We've had improvements, of course, in East Side parks, including Harmony Park, which now provides access for all of our types of residents, regardless of whether they are able-bodied or not, to provide some recreational facilities. And we have also worked for improving a 911 service in some of our East Side wards that had really unacceptably high response rates for fire and police service and protection. In law enforcement, we've certainly stepped up to the plate early on. We got statewide awards for leading the state of Illinois and having dedicated revenue sources for police and fire pensions. And we continue to do that. And as well as in law enforcement, trying to step up to community outreach programs, body cameras, and the establishment, of course, of the Pscrb. We've also had some improvement in very aggressive liquor enforcement, not just in downtown to promote public safety, but throughout the city. And these are things that we can certainly be proud of. Along the way, we've been fiscally responsible. And that is not just with our aforementioned pension funding, but we've had stable finances for many years. We're delivering more public services to more people with several hundred fewer employees than we did 8 to 10 years ago. And that's in no small part because of great leadership by this council, by elected officials, as well as obviously our staff and our current city manager and other previous occupants of city manager and deputy city managers. We're certainly more efficient and effective. We managed to even plug the hole in trash. After talking trash for many years, we managed to balance the enterprise fund and move forward. And we've dealt with some obviously very controversial things like cannabis. And we reached a compromise on a welcoming cities community recommendation and ordinance. Again, Mr. Gleason, it's been an honor not only to work with you, but we certainly appreciate many of your contributions. But we do have lots of challenges, obviously, for the future. And those include a constant effort on our cultural historic core downtown in revitalization and improvements and renovation. Another very underperforming area on the east is Eastland Mall, which has just been very, very difficult. The biggest worry 8 years ago was not Eastland Mall. The biggest worry was across the street with Colonial Plaza. Well, now we've got Empire Crossing, and we've got a more serious issue with respect to attempting to revitalize and remake Eastland Mall. And we've, at some point, I hope that we continue to move forward with rejoining Metcom, and I think that will improve public safety for our entire community. Developing a long-term regional water supply, which has got to include, at some point in the next generation, tapping into the Muhammad Aquifer. One of the things that I hope that we also do is to pursue some good government initiatives. Former Governor Pat Quinn is actually proposing and working with cities to adopt the kind of ordinance that Arlington Heights has in Illinois. And that's proposing initiative and referendum, some of them binding, some of them not binding. But I think that this is something that would be useful for us to consider in the future. But in closing, just as we face these challenges, I would urge all of our elected leaders to reimagine our city services and policies for an increasingly diverse and dynamic community, because that's going to continue. Then what will count for the future is not how many extra zeros that we may have in our bank account, but rather what we've done to make a difference of lives of other people, and especially our children. And again, this has been an honor of a lifetime. Thank you all very much. Are there council comments? I'm going to start with Ward 1. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Councilmember Matthey, anything? Or I'd go around the dais. Okay, Councilmember Boland, Ward 2, anything?
Oh, well, yeah, I would. First of all, I would like to say, Madam Runner, I've had a much more pleasant experience working with you in the past 2 years than the contentious experience I had on the other side of the podium, and I appreciate that. And I think that has to do with getting to know you better. So I appreciate that too. And to Alderman Bray and Alderman Painter, I'm going to miss you on the council. I appreciate all your honesty and mentorship. And I just want to share, Alderman Painter has such a direct and honest approach that when the citizens were attacking or harassing Alderman Carrillo, she had the nerve to call them up and tell them to knock it off. So kudos to Alderman Painter. And I appreciate the public service beyond the council that both of you add to the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mboka, anything? I'm just going around the dais. Yeah, Mboka.
Okay, let me unmute myself here. So I have a couple of things to say, so I hope you'll indulge me. So I'm going to start with what might seem, well, not as fun, but important. And then I'll finish with the more fun stuff to finish on a positive note. So I wanted to take just a moment to address public comment that was directed at Councilmember Carrillo last week. As you may remember, Councilmember Carrillo was told, and I'm paraphrasing here, that if she did not like how things are, she should go back to where she came from. I think it is important to reiterate that if we are going to hold Councilmember Carrillo to a higher standard for what she says, we must also hold ourselves accountable to high standards as well, which includes not only council members, but also community members. So that statement came across to me and many others as a racist statement, whether intentional or not. And I'd like to remind everyone that, you know, what we say in a public space can have a tremendous impact on our community, particularly young people. So as much as I value freedom of speech, I think it is important that we also value choosing our words wisely in order to foster a community where our words are used to elevate each other rather than tear each other down. Okay. So as a result, I've asked staff to come up with a statement that will be read at the beginning of public comment in order to help frame what we expect from each public commenter, if that's a word, while still remaining true to the value of freedom of speech that we all hold dear, so dear in our country. And I would also be remiss if I did not say a word about our discourse on social media. I think it is clear to me that social media has had an incredibly negative impact in how we interact with one another, and not just in our community. And therefore, I want to add a word of caution about it and encourage us to be kind to one another, and not just on social media, but anytime we interact with one another. And I think we'll be better for it as a community. So now to the more fun part, I also wanted to say, thank you to Councilmember Painter and Councilmember Bray for their service on the council. I do remember Councilmember Painter, having 7 years of service and being the one member on the council who's had to run twice in 2 years, which was not fun, but she did so admirably. I think we're glad that you did it because you helped us on the council achieve quite a bit, and some of the achievements that we have been able to witness are things that you should also be proud of, because it's not just one council member, or it's not just the mayor, it's all of us together as a group. So and just like Councilmember Bolden said, you're very direct, and you've told me sometimes when you disagree with me, and that's something that I definitely appreciate about you. And also, Councilmember Bray, I want to thank you for your 4 years of service, and like Mayor Renner said, you brought a legal perspective and to your work here, and I know many of us have learned a lot from that. And that's the beauty of having a council with so many different perspectives, is that we can learn from each other. And even though you only serve one term, I think it was evident from the beginning, that you brought a lot of passion. And I remember at your first one of the events, you had balloons and T-shirts and things like that, and that it was the first time that I had seen that from a candidate, but I think it was the same passion that you brought to the council, and I definitely appreciate it. So to both of you, again, thank you very much. Look forward to whatever life brings for you in the next stage, and look forward to remaining in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Julie Emick, anything?
That works, Julie works. I just want to thank my colleagues, Donna, Johnny, and Kim, for their service. And I look forward to many, many more conversations. Oh, what am I talking about, Donna? You're not going to, I know. apologize. I was looking across the screen and my brain and mouth didn't match. Johnny, Kim, and of course, Terry, for your service. And I look forward to many, many more conversations with you.
Councilmember Pater.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to thank everyone who's stepped up to serve the city of Bloomington. And thank you to all who ran and to all who were elected. Running for office has become a grueling affair. And thanks to you all for putting yourselves out there. I also want to thank my constituents who elected me twice, as well as the whole community for informing me and encouraging me in so many ways. It's truly been a pleasure and an honor to serve you. I've met so many good people from all walks of life. I want to give a special shout out to Nick Becker, who will be taking my place. I know he has a heart to serve. He's younger than me and full of energy to learn and do good work for all of his constituents in the city of Bloomington. Thank you, Nick, from the bottom of my heart. Bloomington has a city manager and staff who are second to none. I have found them wonderful to work with. They have educated me in so many ways. On ride-alongs with the police, you get a chance to have a different perspective of the challenges of their job. On visits to the Water Reclamation District, you learn that all the stuff that you have to deal with on a daily basis pales in comparison to the stuff they process every day. And the water treatment plant makes clear how lucky we are to live in a city that values water quality. Arbor Day tree plantings are a small reminder that we can each do something about global warming. Visiting Springfield for Lobby Day gives us a chance to personally bring our local needs to state representatives. The list goes on and on. It's been an education and it's been very exciting. Thanks for affording me those opportunities. And being an alderman has also afforded me the opportunity to resolve constituent problems, to work to get more funds for street and road repairs, water and sewer repair, and waste management, to work to bring new businesses like Dick's Sporting Goods and Hy-Vee to Bloomington, while realizing and trying to help with the challenges the pandemic has brought to existing businesses, to work for mental health through the efforts such as serving on the BHCC, and to work to ensure public safety for all constituents. Mboka Mwilambwe, I know you are going to do a great job as mayor. Your intelligence and temperament will be a wonderful asset. Thank you for your patience and tutelage during the past 7 years. I'm excited and grateful that you decided to do this. I know that Bloomington will be in good hands. I'm convinced that all of the newly elected will do their very best to serve all their constituents and move the city forward in the best ways possible. Once again, thanks for giving me the opportunity to give back to my community.
Thank you. Councilmember Carrillo, Ward 6.
Yeah, I guess just thanks everybody for your service. Appreciate it. Gonna miss y'all. And I guess, I wasn't gonna say anything, but Councilmember Mwilambwe, I appreciate the sentiment behind your comments today. And I mean, I guess the only thing is, that rhetoric isn't new. I wish that we had spoken up about it sooner, and I hope that, if that's the standard that we're holding ourselves to, then that standard is applied equally to everyone. So, but appreciate it. Thank you for your comments, and thank y'all for your service.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Yeah, I would echo the thanks for service, and I wish that I had had an opportunity to serve with you longer, but look forward to continuing to benefit from your service and your wisdom in years to come.
Thank
Blessings.
You. Councilmember Craybill.
Yes, just to echo the thanks for service for everyone. From everyone, it's a hard job running and being on council. So appreciate all the time that you've all put into it, and best of luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Jeff. Councilman, last but not least. Do you on? I see you're right here. I'm up next to me, but I don't see you. Councilmember Bray. Anyway, I don't see you on my screen. I know you're here because you're next to me. Sorry, Councilmember Bray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for all of your kind comments. And I'm just overwhelmed by you today, but have been continuously overwhelmed by the graciousness, the professionalism, the hard work that I see in our city on behalf of so many, the work that's done by so few. When you think about our staff, you think about our public servants, our uniformed officers, and the sacrifices that people make in this city every day to make it better for everyone. And I want to say thank you to City Manager Tim Gleason, sir. It's just been this absolute privilege to watch you and see it done by a true professional. And I mean that, and not denigrating anyone else who has served or who I worked with, but the city is so well served by you. And so I wish you every good thing as you continue in your work. And thank you for bringing Deputy City Manager Billy Tias to us. What a gem he is. And again, what a pleasure to work with you, Billy. And again, the rest of the staff, my fellow council members. I hope that I've had an opportunity. I feel like I've had opportunity to have a relationship with most of you, and I thank you for that. I've grown. I hope I've been able to help you in some way. And again, it's been an honor and a privilege. And finally, thank you to my Ward 9 constituents for giving me this opportunity. I think Alderwoman Painter said it so well when she said, what a whirlwind of education and engagement and community it is to be a city council member. So thank you to those constituents. And I know that Ward 9 will be well served by Tom Crumpler, and all my best to him as he takes on the mantle. And not last but not least, for our new mayor, our entering mayor, Millen Bobway, I'm only a phone call away. Should you need any assistance, but sir, you are a true leader, and I look forward to seeing you do great things in the city of Bloomington. Thank you all.
Thank you. Again, one last thing that I meant to say, because I was blithering on. Happy birthday to Franklin Park. It's 165 years old today, our oldest park, the oldest park in Bloomington. And on that note, I want to again thank Tim, Billy, Jeff, others. It's been great, and all my council colleagues and staff. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Always moved by Councilmember Boland and second by Councilmember Milowambwe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.